Hello Flosstube, it's Tuesday the 27th of December and a belated Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you all had a wonderful time. I know I did. Can't quite believe it's all over, all that build up, and then before you know it, you're at the other side of it and it's as far away again as it ever was. So I'm back for a second video. Who knew that was going to happen? I certainly didn't. I have been overwhelmed by the kindness and generosity of everybody's comments, messages, welcomes. I can't thank you all enough. This clearly is a wonderful, wonderful community of like-minded people, and it's been great. I desperately hope I've responded to everybody's comments. I know that if people take the time to make a comment, I should take the time to respond to it, so I hope I did get to everybody, and if I didn't, it wasn't intentional. But I've read every single one of the messages that you've sent me. They've all been wonderful and very welcome. So hence, you didn't scare me off. That amazes me more than anybody. And so I thought I'd better stay true to my word and make a second video that was a bit of a retrospective of the things that I've made in the past. I didn't think I'd be making this video again so soon, or coming back to making a video so soon. Part of the reason for this is one of the projects that I've completed is due to go back up in the attic shortly. It's a Christmas piece that lives up in the attic for most of the year, so I thought I'd take the opportunity while the piece was around and available to show it off. So I wanted to first of all do I'm just looking down at notes here, I'm not ignoring you all. Wanted to make some shout outs to some people who have been particularly generous. Ingeborg, if I've got your name right, I'm sure it's Ingeborg, a stitch too far. I made a throwaway comment regarding my Heaven and Earth design that I didn't really know the difference between 10 stitch and half stitch, which I didn't particularly, and it didn't stop me from just launching into my Heaven and Earth and doing little half stitches. It's fine, and I think it's working okay. But Ingeborg, who is again a stitch too far, I'll hopefully link it in the comment section if I remember to do that, very generously created a tutorial for me, and well, for everybody really, but with me in mind particularly, to show the difference between tent and half stitch. It really is a remarkable difference between the two, and I can see now from the work that she's done why you would adopt tent over half stitch. With regard to my Heaven and Earth design, because the effects, the results were so dramatically different in Ingeborg's video, I don't think I'm going to switch now on that piece, because I think it'll be pretty obvious where I've made that decision to change the technique. So I'm going to carry on. I'm perfectly happy with the coverage on my mice, so I'm going to carry on as I am with that one, but I will certainly be adopting tent on the next, what would it be, 1/1 piece that I do. I have a few Luca S kits. Luca S don't seem to be terribly well known, but they have some stunning designs and their kits are set out beautifully. So I do recommend that you go and have a look at them. They're not overly expensive and they're rather wonderful. My next shout out is for McKenna at Every Stitch Counts. McKenna, I was watching your video on Christmas Eve, just stitching away in a quiet moment. I nearly fell off the sofa when you suddenly mentioned my name. It was completely unexpected and quite surreal to hear your own name being mentioned on a video that you're not expecting that to happen to. So you were the first that did that to me, and it was rather magical. So thank you for that, and I love your work. Likewise to Danielle, Stitcherista. Last night I was just watching Danielle's latest video, and Danielle is a hoot. If you don't know her videos, really go and check her out. She's such a funny lady, and she's so vivacious and full of life. And Danielle, I didn't know what you were going through before watching your last video, but I hope everything works out well for you, and your attitude and spirit is truly remarkable. So kudos to you, and you made me blush, you sweet lady. I also wanted to make some general shout outs for people that I follow whose videos I enjoy and who were kind enough to comment on my video. It was slightly like being welcomed into a circle of people that I know very well, because I've been stalking Flosstube for about 18 months now. You get to know people very well, and it's quite strange when suddenly they're interacting with you and talking about you. It's rather magical and wonderful. And if you needed a reason to do a Flosstube video, that welcoming embrace of solidarity is worth it alone. So quick shout outs to Garrett, Coffee Stitcher. Garrett, everybody knows and loves Garrett, and he's been a good friend to me. He encouraged me to make videos a long while back, and I blanked him on it to start with, thinking I'm never going to make a video. And he invited me to Stitch Mania when I didn't know anything about Stitch Mania. So he's been a good friend, and everybody knows Garrett. But if you don't know Garrett, Coffee Stitcher, go and look him up. He's a great guy. Gerald, Ginger Gerald Stitcher, you beat me to it on the videos, and I didn't acknowledge the fact that I had virtually plagiarised your approach to your first video, because I used the Know Your Needleworker tag in the same way that Gerald did, and he's done some stunning work. His old world map is astonishing, and his planets, now they're framed, are truly works of art. Stephanie Lindystitches, you commented on my video, and I have admired you so much for so long. You're such a witty woman, and it was quite surreal when your comment came through, so thank you for that. And Crafty Kara, whose work on the Disney Stitches is amazing. Check her out as well. And Kara, thank you for commenting. So if you don't know any of those guys, seriously, look up their videos. I'll try and remember to link them. There are great people on this channel, Flosstube channel, and they are all deserving of attention and merit for what they do. Right, I'm gushing, aren't I? I'm gushing. I'm going to stop gushing now. So my plan for the video was to show the work that I've done in the past, so I don't know how long this is going to be. I'll try not to sort of bore it and keep it going for too long. Before I do that, I thought I'd just show, I'm afraid I didn't get my stocking completed in time for Christmas. I kind of fell off the wagon a bit because work was so busy and everything was a bit chaotic, but oh, look at that, I can't even get past it now. I have done more work on it. I now have a toe, and I nearly have a heel. Oh, see, again, here, this is nearly the heel, and this is the bottom of the piece. I'm never going to get used to doing this. This is the bottom of the piece. So it's nearly there in terms of the outline of the piece. These are, oh, look at this, this is pathetic. These are runners. They're sled runners, when I couldn't remember the name of them before. But it's coming on now. A lot of that half stitching down there in the houses is coming on quite nicely, and it's great fun to stitch still. And the half stitching obviously does sort of work up a bit faster. I have been recommended that I hold things up behind the pieces that I hold up because of the lighting that I hadn't thought about, so I apologise for that, for not having done that before, and I'll try and remember to do it with the pieces that require it here. I'm hoping that, you know, this isn't too far from completion, and it will certainly be ready to hang up by the fireplace next year. But I can't see that being ready. Well, it wasn't, so that's that. Okay, so I made a little list. So if I keep looking down, it's only because I made a little list so that I remember everything that I have to show you. The first piece that I ever did as an adult, when I'd always watched my mum cross stitching, the hobby had always fascinated me, but I'd never done anything about it. So I decided to buy a very, very small kit to see if it was as enjoyable as it looked, as though it was. So I bought this. Tiny, oh, and now I have glare problems. Oh, that's not good, is it? This is going to be a problem with all of these because they're all, there we go, I'll tilt it at an angle. So it was a very, very simple kit. It cost buttons to buy. I think it was supposed to be a card, perhaps a sort of a welcome to your new home card. 2 colours. It took me a very few hours to stitch up, and I fell in love with stitching from the moment that the needle went in for the first time. So that's the very first thing that I did as an adult, really. I did this about 20 years ago. I think I mentioned in my first video I've been stitching on and off for about 20 years, but it's been more off than on for a very, very long time, and it's really only in the last 2 to 3 years that I've seriously picked up the hobby and run with it, and it's become a bit more of an obsession. So that was the first piece that I ever completed. I then, working through various things, kept finding excuses to swap things because I had a short attention span for a while with what I was doing. I think I've overcome that now, and I enjoy working on big pieces. But in our local craft store, Hobbycraft in the UK, it's the equivalent of the US's Hobby Lobby, I suppose. They're not great for cross-stitch kits, and they're getting worse, to be honest. They seem to be running down what they're doing with cross-stitch, but you can get all the threads and some fabrics and a few bits and pieces, but it's not great. But they had this kit for sale. I think it was a kit that was going out of manufacture, which what's it called? They're called vintage postcards. You may know them or you may not. I've never really seen them a great deal since I picked this up. It was in the sale, so it didn't cost too much, and I love Art Deco. I love the 30s and the 20s and that whole aesthetic movement. I love the architecture. I think that's why I'm such a fan of Poirot. It really is because of the design, and it was this piece at the bottom that particularly attracted me. So I have completed this one. I've not started this one. I've still got all the threads and the pattern and everything to do the second one, but in the way of my Teresa Wentzler piece on a holiday, I took this piece with me for something to do in the evenings, made a start on it and completed it when I got back. So this is my, look at this, this is my At the Beach, which is a kit from Janlynn. I'm really quite pleased with the way this turned out. The frame was a real find that seemed to work very well with the design, with the sort of the rope mirroring. The cording, you can see that there's cording here, and then you had to tie this little bow onto the cord and thread it through to make it look as though that tag was hanging free. I'm not overly pleased with the girl's face. She does look like she's had reconstructive plastic surgery. My backstitching wasn't great at this time. I'm not the world's greatest backstitcher now, but it certainly wasn't wonderful then. But it was a great fun piece to stitch. It didn't take too long, and again, like with the spring sampler that I showed in my last video, because this is made up of little elements, you get the feeling that you're doing a mini finish each time. You finish a bit of it. I was quite pleased with the way my little French knots turned out. I'd never done French knots before. These little French knots here, they all worked out quite well, and there's some on the eye from life and the eye from is as well. So I don't even know how long that took. It didn't take a terribly long time, but it was rather pleasing that I got a finish in, really, having fiddled about with stuff for so long and not really achieved anything. It was good to get a finish in, and it gave me some confidence back that maybe this was the hobby for me. The next piece, which is the piece that will be going back up into the attic shortly, is a piece that only sort of emerges at Christmas for obvious reasons. This is Santa's Secret by Dimensions Gold. I had bought this kit a long time earlier, justifying it because I was working on a very big piece. I justified it because it was a smaller piece that I could carry around, and it also meant that the cat could sit on my lap if she so chose when I was working. And I had done just the top of the hat here before I lost all patience with it and stopped working on it for about 12 months. And when I came back to it, I just flew through it, really. It was an absolute joy to stitch, even all that white on white, because there's a lot of not white in that white, so it's not as sort of oppressive as it looks to do. The face really came alive when the eyes popped in, and I just think he's got a marvellous personality. The shine on the baubles, I think, he's stunning. All the Christmas tree, the pine tree needles is all done in half stitch, which seems to be a trope that dimensions used quite often, hence the name dimensions, I suppose, to get all the different textures into their pieces. And the spectacles are couched. That couching nearly finished me off. I can honestly say I'm not much of a fan of backstitching, but I'll live with it. But couching, I will try and avoid wherever possible. I have some couching to do on the Santa sleigh, which I'm not really looking forward to. The thought that goes behind these designs is stunning, really. This here, which there, obviously there's a couched spectacle around it, but in the stitching itself, the colour changed to accommodate the fact that there would be a difference with the light coming through glass onto his face. So it's a great piece. It only cost about £10 to buy at the time, and it's a stunning piece which doesn't take that long to do. So these little Dimensions Gold Petite kits they're really quite good, because you're looking at a few weeks, not a few months or a few years to get those concluded, which, when I was saying before, the hobby can be very time consuming and a slow process. It's nice that you can get some finishes in more readily. The next one I'll show, because the big piece was sort of ongoing. I'm not a flowery person particularly, and I don't know why I bought this, other than the design of it really appealed to me when I saw it. It was a very unusual depiction of a flower. It's a DMC kit, which is still available, I think. You'll have to forgive how shabby this is looking. It's not framed, and I'm not sure what to do with it. I think making it a cushion is going to be the best option, because I don't really want to frame it. But it is the DMC Rose. They brought a series of these out, about 6 of them. And this is the Rose. It was the only one that particularly attracted me, but I just loved the execution of this. The green here, just the touch of green at the side, and it's photographic in the way that it's done. It looks so realistic. So again, this didn't take terribly long, really. There was a lot of grades of pink in it, but it was great fun to do. There was no blending or fractional stitching, so it was just really ploughing away at it until it was done. And once it was done, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place with this. I can't get the hang of the fact that I'm the wrong way round to the camera. Once it was done, I just didn't know what to do with it. It didn't seem to warrant framing particularly. So, like I say, I think it may be going down the direction of becoming a cushion, because I think that'd make quite a nice cushion cover. So there we go. That was the Rose, which is probably a couple of years ago now since I did this one, and it took a couple of months, I think. I was slightly concerned that I was going to run out of thread, because reading various reviews of this kit, people were complaining that they were running out of thread, but I didn't have that problem. I am extremely frugal with my thread though. I'm a bit miserly, so that might make the difference, where kits obviously will only give you absolutely enough thread to finish the piece. That being said, a DMC kit is going to use DMC thread, so even if you run out of thread, it's no great shakes to go and buy some more thread. The piece that I was working on and off throughout the whole process of doing those pieces was my one and only Teresa Wentzler finish. It's a biggie. I started it a long time ago. I don't know how many years ago, and it had been a very on-off piece, more off than on for most of it. And then suddenly I had a splurge of creative enthusiasm for it, and I finished it in a bout of energetic stitching in 2015. I think I finished it January 2015, so not that long ago really. This is Teresa Wentzler's Castle sampler. I'm never going to get all this in. Let's see. Oh, that's not too bad. I'm having to hold it at this angle, as you'll appreciate, because of the glare. But if I get up, it might I'll take it back to start with, and you can see the whole thing. It's quite a big piece, and it did take forever, and I hated it at times and thought I was never going to finish it, and it was a UFO for a while, and then it came out of the UFO pile and came back into execution. And as I say, I kind of finished it in a splurge of enthusiasm. All this, oh dear, all this border was quite soul destroying, really, because although it doesn't look it, there are, I think, 8 different shades of green in each of those vines, and then the trellis work behind, I think, is another 2 different shades of yellowy brown. So the whole thing is so blended and so fractional, not this bit particularly, but a lot of fractionals in the castle and in the people. But the finished result is absolutely worth it when you see the amount of detail on this piece. So I finished the people last. I'd started the king an awfully long time ago and had been working along, but the queen was the last thing to go in, I think, before the back stitching, and it became a sort of a mercy dash towards the end to get the thing concluded. It kind of has everything, and for a first piece I think I was being quite adventurous. It has 1/1 stitching, fractionals, blending, all this sort of filigree work down here is all done 1/1, so all these little pieces in between, all the lettering is 1/1. The pattern was a hand-drawn pattern by Teresa Wentzler, so it was incredibly difficult to follow in places. But I'm so thrilled with it, so thrilled that I stuck with it through the years and got it concluded. Bizarrely, you very quickly forget the pain of a piece, of how long it takes and how frustrated you get with it, because I've bought no end of Teresa Wentzler patterns since completing this, sort of seemingly having forgotten how much I hated this at times. There's a new Flosstuber called Kiwi Flower from New Zealand, Lisa, who has also done this piece and nearly concluded it, and she is complaining of the clouds, and I have absolutely every sympathy. These clouds that don't look like very much were an absolute beast to do, because they're all, it doesn't show particularly here, but they're all quite pale colours on pale even weave, half stitch, randomly sort of placed. They were really not fun at all to do. I was very glad to get the clouds completed. So that's the single biggest piece that I've completed to date, and it probably is the piece that I'm proudest of. And I have, well, as you'll know, at the moment I'm doing the mini Peacock Majesty, and I have every intention of doing more Teresa Wentzlers, but you know, I'm not getting any younger, and I wonder how many I'll get through in my lifetime. But that was the castle, finished a couple of years ago. Very pleased to get it finished off. I had it framed at a local framers. I have to say, I'm astonished at the cost of framing in the US when you guys talk about how much it costs to frame things. I don't know how they can justify those sorts of figures. That piece in a local framers cost me £25, which, what would that be? So about $40, something like that. But you know, you guys are talking about hundreds of dollars to frame things, so I feel for you. The only snag, because I didn't really love this for a long time, I just left it on the frame and I hadn't ever taken the tension off, so I think this is why I have wonky lines on it now, because I possibly damaged the fabric by not slackening it off each time I finished it. But to be honest, sometimes I was practically throwing it into the corner just to get the thing out of my sight, so I can live with a bit of a wobbly line now as a result of that. The next piece that I finished was another DMC kit. I can't show it to you directly because it's no longer here. It was a Christmas present for Nigel's mother, who loves border collies. You can find, I'm having to pick this off my own Instagram website because it's the only image I have of it. But that is the DMC Border Collie kit, and it comes out really well, and it only took about 3 weeks. It was a very, very fast stitch. I had huge concerns about not having enough thread on this one. It was very, very tight with some of the colours. But I'm quite pleased with him. There was minimal back stitching, just a little bit around the nose and the eyes and the mouth. And my mother-in-law-to-be was absolutely thrilled with it. She was delighted with it. It has pride of place. I got a silver frame for it, and it has pride of place in her front room, which is very satisfying for me to see every time we go over, and to think that it was so well received was very nice. So I think it was 2 Christmases ago that I gave her that as a Christmas present. Then I go on to, we're nearly through them, there aren't that many. We went to Florida a couple of years ago, and I did buy a kit, one of the Disney Park exclusive kits, which I haven't started yet because it's huge. But while I was there were a lot of the Thomas Kincaid MCG textile kits that are very popular at the moment, and at the time you couldn't get them in the UK. There was no UK outlet for them, and they were all over the place in the States, but I didn't buy them. I bought the Disney Park exclusive because I thought there was really no opportunity of getting that cheaply anywhere else outside of a Disney park. But while we were in Florida and I happened to be flipping around So&So back in the UK on their website, all of a sudden the Disney kits were in stock. So while I was still in Florida, I hurriedly ordered a couple of them so they'd be ready for me when I got back. One of the ones that I ordered was the Disney Fantasia Vignette, which I finished. And here he is, here's Mickey. Oh, really? There we go. This took longer than I thought it was going to, because you look at these and you think, well, they're just little cartoony pictures, that won't take long. It took a very long time, really, proportionate to its size. It was a slow stitch. It was a fun stitch. The colours are magnificent, and it was my first use of blending filament, which I doubt you're going to see. You may see there's some blending filament in the rainbow, and there's some blending filament underneath Mickey's hands, which while I was stitching it I was thinking, why am I putting blending filaments in here? But of course he's sprinkling his magic, and I doubt that you can see that. You may be able to, I don't know. But yes, it was a much slower stitch than I thought it was going to be. As is often the case, once I'd got to a point where I thought I was only a few days off stitching it, I started to stitch like a mad thing just to get the thing completed. So I think I finished this a couple of Easters ago. I don't know, I'm losing track of time. I don't keep records of what I stitch and when I stitch. Perhaps I should, but I don't know. I may find that demoralising rather than a helpful, productive thing. I know some people keep meticulous records for how they are progressing, and I don't know that wouldn't depress me a bit. So the downside to these kits, which I think a lot of people have levied at the company that make them, I don't think it's so much the case with the full kits, but with the vignettes. So many of the colours in this kit were wrong. It was untrue, really. When I was sorting the threads, I had so many colours missing. I had the wrong number of skeins of thread. One of the colours that they were advising I should use in Mickey's coat was like a salmon pink, and as you can see, I mean, there's no way I was ever going to use salmon pink in Mickey's cloak. It's Candamar, isn't it? I think it's Candamar designs that are, or it's Candamar threads that are used by MCG Textiles. I know they have a policy whereby if you are missing any threads, or if you run out of threads, or if anything's wrong in the kit, you can contact them and they will replace threads, and I understand that absolutely. So I think that sort of goes some way to compensating for the fact that this kit was so woefully and so badly kitted up. But I'm in the UK and I don't want to wait 6 to 8 weeks to get a piece of thread come through. So courtesy of the conversion charts that I found on the internet, I found replacement DMC threads some of which I already had in stock, some of which I had to go out and buy to make up the colours that I was missing. So I got there in the end, but I did find that a very frustrating and time-consuming process to have to be sorting something out that I assumed when I bought the kit would be a given, that everything would be in order and correct. So it's just a bit of a warning to anybody really that is thinking buying one of these kits, or who has one of these kits and hasn't started them. The threads may not be correct, and don't trust the threads. I've seen other people who have completed this work, and some of the colour variants are quite remarkable. Some of the differences in colour on the cloaks, Mickey's cloak that I've seen, and some of the colours in this rock. I don't think the colours in my rock are necessarily correct, but I do quite like the contrast. The other thing to warn anybody about with these kits is you really do have to love French knots. There are so many French knots. All of these flowers, all the little spots of red on the rock, all that white, really anywhere you can see a little spot of colour, it's a French knot. I'm not the world's greatest at French knots, I'm a bit hit and miss with them. So some of these came out really well and some of them look a bit shonky. But I thought, well, they're supposed to be flowers, so they wouldn't be uniform anyway, so that's how I've justified it to myself. So I'm really pleased with Mickey. I think he's a real nice splash of colour, and he's a lot less intimidating than the bigger kits. Thanks to Kara, Crafty Kara, I did buy the Snow White full cross stitch because I saw her completed piece and it is absolutely stunning, and so I wanted that in my life. And I also have the Winnie the Pooh kit that I purchased at the same time as I purchased this, and I did get a few more of the vignettes, but I'm not rushing back into a vignette because, you know, this was a bit of a cautionary tale really. The frame was just from a local hardware people in the UK is Wilco's. They have some great frames actually, and they're very cheaply priced, and I thought I was never going to outdo the colour in the design, so I'd just go for something very plain. So I went for just this plain white frame, and I think it works quite well. So here's another finish, and he was a delight to stitch once I finally got the thread sorted. The last piece, sorry, I'm just checking my notes, the last piece that I have completed to date, and again, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have lived through this one, I'm afraid. I did post up rather a lot on this. Lavender and Lace is an incredibly popular pattern designer or pattern manufacturer, and everybody's doing some stunning work on the angels. There have been so many, and I have quite a few of the patterns myself for some of the angels, but everyone was doing female angels, so I thought, I'm going to do the male angel. They only did one male angel, I'll do the male angel. So I did Michael, Angel Michael, partly because when I saw the chart I was very intrigued by how realistic his face looked and wondering how you would do that and whether it would look as good as that when it was stitched up, and I have to report that it really is that good. Here's Angel Michael. Oh, glare, 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 glare. So he's not the biggest Lavender and Lace. I've seen other people's Lavender and Laces and they're huge, and this guy is quite modest in proportion compared to most of the kits, I think, or most of the patterns, sorry, they didn't come in kits. But he was really good fun to stitch, really good fun, and pretty quick as well, because you know, having lived through Teresa Wentzler and you know, the horror that is blended threads, with this all being block colours, it didn't take anything like as long to plough through a lot of this, and it was great fun. I'd done a fair bit of the cloak. I started from the middle and worked outwards to get to the face quite quickly. The face on Michael is 1/1. Let's see how close I can get you to him. Michael seems to be quite an apt name for him because several people have commented how much he looks like Michael Fassbender, and I do see where people are coming from with that comparison. He does have a look of Michael Fassbender. Binder, Bender, whichever. So it's my first attempt at beading, and it's the most I've ever worked with metallic threads as well. I did this absolutely as suggested. I didn't make any changes at all to anything. I'm not that adventurous, prefer that somebody else does that work for me, and I just run with whatever is given to me. So all the threads and all the colours are exactly as charted, even down to the heart jewel there, which is oh, look at the bling on that. That's incredible. Behind the what do you call those things? The charm is all stitched gold, metallic gold. So I think that really helps to give that sparkle. And there's a lot of sparkle, obviously, in his cloak there, and a lot of beads as well. There are only 2 colours of beads, which was good because it gave me an opportunity to have a go at beading without being overfaced by it. Some of these patterns, both Lavender and Lace and Mirabilia, seem to have an inordinate amount of beading to do, and I didn't know if I was going to enjoy beading. I have to say, I loved beading. I loved it so much that I'm really quite keen to get back to doing something else with a bit of beading on it. I watched a beading tutorial that I'll again link if I remember to, from Romilly, whose Flosstube name is Stitching with a Shimmy. She just did a very simple beading tutorial that showed you how to get the angles either going slanting to the left or to the right, or up or horizontal, vertical or horizontal, which I was keen to adopt in the necklace. Oh, really? Come on. Where am I going with this? There. I was keen to adopt in the necklace so that the angle of the beads followed the natural line that it would follow. So all those beads are placed in different locations. I don't know if you can see, but there are also beads in the shoulders here as well. So that's Angel Michael. I only finished him a few months ago. There is a mistake in this, undoubtedly, because the circle doesn't look quite right. The Petite treasure braid metallic thread circle around him doesn't look quite circular. It looked fine until it was framed in this dead-on circular frame, and I think it does show up that there are imperfections. I'd kind of miscounted and realised that I'd got problems with the circle, which is partly the reason that the circle stops where it does, but I also quite liked the fact that his wing was poking out so that he was almost sort of coming out of that circle, because he looked very constrained on the chart picture by being completely enclosed in a circle. So I used a mistake and justified it by rationalising it that way, and it works for me and it's fine. But I can see when it went to the framers, I was due to pick it up when I rang them to see. Oh, I can't. I'm so sorry about this. I'm pathetic with this. You'd think I'd get there by now. When I rang the framers to see if it was ready, they said that they'd got problems because whichever way they lay it, they couldn't get the circle to work. And yeah, that is my fault and not their fault, because it's not a perfect circle. I wonder if it was ever a perfect circle, even in the chart now. I'm not sure. But I think they did a great job. I think the frame is super. I didn't want to go down the square, the circular pattern in the square frame route. I think that can sometimes look a little disjointed. So he's rather pleasing. 1/1 skin, if anyone's thinking of doing 1/1 on one of these patterns, it's not easy. I was working without my lenses and without my glasses and really holding it very close to my face to be able to work it. And it took for a while and it was fiddly, but I absolutely do not regret the time that I spent putting this chappie in on a 1/1 basis. I would not do it any differently if I went back to it again. I love the look of that face. It's like a photograph. And other Lavender and Lace designs that I've seen clearly have a similar approach, and I don't think it would look anything like as effective if this had been done 2/2. So yeah, there we go. That's what I would recommend if I was doing one of these, or if anybody was doing one of these. So there we go. That is everything that I've done to date. Compared to some people's finishes, it's not a huge amount, but I have really only seriously been stitching on a regular basis for about 3 years now, so I'm quite pleased with the amount of stuff that I've got achieved in that time, with the Heaven and Earth as well, which is, you know, over halfway done now, and the other pieces, the stocking and so on and so forth. So that didn't, oh gosh, we're up to 40 minutes. It did take longer. I've been on longer. I hope I haven't bored everybody, and if it's too long, just tell me and I'll not do another long one. So thank you for your patience and allowing me to vent my work on you. Vent sounds a bit aggressive. I, as you know, don't produce a lot of different work on a regular basis, so I don't know the merits in doing videos this regularly, because there's just going to be so little to show. But I will hopefully continue. Well, I won't say hopefully, I will continue to make videos. It's great fun to do and very satisfying, and I do feel very welcomed by this community. I have one other thing to show that I really need to mention. I just need to find it. My apologies. Flirting about. I mentioned in my previous video that I had another Teresa Wentzler pattern on the way. It arrived finally, into great relief, because it had been about 7 weeks and I was getting quite concerned. It had been coming from Canada, that maybe it wasn't going to arrive at all, and then, as if by magic, it arrived last week. So I just thought I'd show it off because I'd mentioned it and a few people had asked about it. It's, you know, I'm doing the Peacock Majesty, which is, and still taking forever. Well, here's the Peacock Tapestry, which is, you know, not a dissimilar design in many respects. Oh, really? So here's Peacock Majesty. I think most people would agree that it's possibly the greatest of the Teresa Wentzler works. It's the behemoth that everybody sort of aspires to in Teresa Wentzler circles. It is very daunting. There's everything that Teresa Wentzler could possibly throw, including the kitchen sink, at this thing, and it's a big piece. It is charted to be 22.5 by 14.5. That sounds pretty big to me, and the piece of fabric that came with it is huge. So I don't know. I've bought it. I bought it because it was so cheap. On eBay in the UK, the last one of these that went in an auction went for £50, I think, if I can just talk in pounds. It went for £50. There are a couple on at the moment that are in the region of £60, £90. This chart is out of print. I know you can get the pattern from Patterns Online, but sometimes if you're thinking of doing something, the kits can work out economically better than buying all the threads. You may have a lot of the threads in stash. If you don't and you have to kit everything up from scratch, quite often they can be disproportionately expensive compared to the kits. I found this in Canada, excuse me, and I think it cost the equivalent of £27, which is about half the price of the one that went previously on eBay. So I thought, well, that's cheap. I'm not going to find it that cheap again, so I will launch in. When it arrived, it gets even better. Everything's come in this, it's been opened, and everything came in this Ziploc bag, but it's all been sorted as well. Everything is in Flossway bags. So it's all good to go. Everything's numbered. I checked it off against the chart. Everything's here. The beads are here. The Krennic metallic thread in Peacock is beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's so fine. It's like candy floss in all the colours that you would expect to find in a Peacock. Letitia. Oh, I didn't mention Letitia. Letitia, I meant to mention you. I love your videos. I love your chatelaine. I love your work. And I love the fact that we communicate with each other and I can count you as a Flosstube friend. And Letitia bought the chart for the Peacock Tapestry. Didn't speak highly of it when she'd actually examined it, and I know exactly how you feel, Letitia. You did make a throwaway comment that maybe we could do this together. it would be the world's slowest stitch along, but I'm absolutely happy to give it a go if you are, and if anybody else wants to join in on that. I think it would be a 10 to 20 year stitch along. I was even thinking maybe if I did a 10 by 10 block, one a week, that would be progress on this thing. Again, to refer back to Kiwi Flower, she's also working on this kit and is talking about what a slow process it is. All those pear leaves take forever because it's just confetti, so confetti rich. But I would like to think that I can do this kit. If I can do this, I'm sure I'm capable of doing anything. So if anybody seriously would like to form some kind of stitch along on the Teresa Wentzler Peacock Majesty Tapestry, I'm doing the Majesty Tapestry, then let me know and we'll see what we can sort, and we can go through the pain together. Okay, I've whittled on now for 3/4 of an hour, so I think I'd better quit while I'm ahead. I thank you all again very much for the welcome that you've given me and your wonderful comments. I was very nervous about making a video. I still am. I think I've been more nervous about making this video than I was the first one. So I hope you like it, and I hope that I haven't bored you all rigid. I hope if you're off for the rest of Christmas like I am, yes, that you have a wonderful time and that you have a great New Year, a great New Year's Eve, and a very happy New Year to you all, and I will hope to see you again some point next year. Bye for now.